SBC Media.
Welcome to the iGaming Daily podcast, analysing the news from the betting and gaming industry all over the globe, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market.
This weekend saw a packed schedule of sports as the Premier League race went to the wire and heavyweight boxing saw its first undisputed champion since 1999, when Alexander Usyk beat Tyson Fury to unite all 4 world title belts. Welcome to iGaming Daily. I'm Ted Orme-Claye and I'm here with my Insider Sport colleagues Callum Williams and Kieran O'Connor to take a look at both sports, boxing and football, and the relationship each one has with the betting sector. So firstly, we're going to talk about Saturday's Ring of Fire clash, as it was billed as, and what this means for boxing and why bookmakers should pay close attention to this. Next, we'll be turning to football and specifically to Betano's marketing strategy in this space, which they've been expanding on lately. And how the Kaizen gaming brand has been building up an impressive portfolio of football partners. Before we get to that, though, we should have a word for our sponsor, Optimove. Optimove is the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market. 56% of the EGR Power 50 personalised player experiences with Optimove. And as a special offer, Optimove are offering new clients a free first month when they buy Optimove. For more information and to claim the free month, go to optimove.com/SBC. Links will also be left in the podcast episode description. So, Callum, Kieran, kicking things off. Yeah, as we said, big weekend of sport. Callum, I'd imagine you were quite pleased with City managing to clinch the title in the Premier League title on the last day. But we're focusing more on the boxing to start with. So, did you both watch the fight? What did you think of it? What was your verdict? And what do you think this means for the sport?
Well, the fight, I thought it was a great fight. To be fair, thought it was one of the best we've seen in the heavyweight division in sort of recent years, even. I think that's sort of attributed to the fact that they're both really, really, really good boxers. The event as a whole in Saudi, they always put on a show. Sometimes it can sort of seem a bit overproduced, I think, especially when you're sort of waiting for the main event and then they've got a rapper on and all that. But I enjoyed the fight, and I think in the end the best man won on the day.
It was a great fight. Same really what Kieran said, to be honest. I mean, just these boxing events now in Saudi as well, I think they're really, you can just tell that the amount of money they're pouring into it. They want to make it a spectacle. They're trying to almost, bring it back, boxing into the forefront, into the mainstream. So, but which we're going to touch on in a minute, the big fights that do draw most attention, it's not rocket science. So, I think overall, great fight. And Usyk is unbelievable fighter. Very deserved winner.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree with you both. It's really hard to disagree with the judge's decision, I think. I mean, Tyson Fury gave it a good go. He was able to, he won a couple of rounds, didn't he? He had some decent control, but Usyk was just, the better performance on the night. And I think thoroughly deserving of the new undisputed heavyweight champion status that he's got. Obviously, that's really significant as well for the sport. Heavyweight boxing being the sort of most visible division, isn't it? It's called the glamour division for a reason. So I think that's a really important moment for the sport and for its visibility moving forward. So sort of on this topic of visibility, we've just written something about this on Insider Sport today. But William Hill partnered with the fight quite late on. Really, it got announced on Saturday as a UK betting partner. And one of the things they said in their announcement was that they were seeing sort of some more action on Fury. They were seeing people moving more towards him. So given that, the result, do you guys reckon this will have been a bit of a blow to the bookies on the night or not too much really? Kieran, I'll start with you on this if you like.
I think, I don't know if any of you sort of had a look at any betting apps before the fight, just see the odds and stuff. But Fury was sort of I would say he was definitely the bookie's favourite to win the bout, but it wasn't a very punter friendly fight. There wasn't really much money to be won unless you're prepared to put a lot of money on and stake a lot of money. I think you said that William Hill said ahead of the fight that they were seeing more people bet on Fury. I don't think that's especially surprising, considering he's 6'9", never lost a fight, a lot bigger than Usyk. For every point, you would sort of back him just to get the win. And I think a lot of people do sort of underestimate Usyk for his career, even though he probably has a much better resume than Fury. But I reckon that the bookies probably made a bit more money back, just because I think people, when they go for these heavyweight fights, they like to think what will happen and what they'd like to see. And I imagine a lot of people would have bet on KO, TKO, unless you're a really, really clever bettor. You're not really going to be betting on the points. Then also on the undercard, there's quite a few people had put a bet on Joe Cordina, who lost, which was a really, really, really big upset. And also Jay Opatai, I think I'm saying his name right, who won on points as well. So yeah, I do think the bookies would have made the money back if they lost any on sort of this big heavyweight fight. There was a few undercard fights they could have made the money back on.
So obviously there's going to be a rematch. It's scheduled for October. Well, theoretically there's going to be a rematch. Obviously we know these things aren't always entirely smooth. But yeah, going to be another rematch, also held in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. So this is still quite a few months down the line. How do you reckon bookies could sort of get a repeat of the Ring of Fire success? What do you reckon some of the strategies they should implement are? And yeah, sort of carry this momentum forward.
Yeah. I mean, rematches in boxing, especially when it's the first one's kind of close, or there's been some sort of controversial ending, much like Groves, Froch and Groves. That rematch was massive, wasn't it? Huge at Wembley. There's just going to be a lot of significant interest in it. Saudi as well, like what they're doing at the minute with boxing, like I said at the beginning. There's just a lot more marketing appeal. What they're trying to do with it now, they're trying to modernise it almost in a way. I think boxing's always been a bit lacking in terms, because you look at the UFC and what they're doing in terms of branding, and they're kind of making things fresh, aren't they? So boxing's always just seemed a bit, kind of behind on that aspect. So I think what Saudi doing now are they're pouring so much money into it, they're getting it back into the mainstream again, and just trying to modernise the sport in a way. So if the rematch does happen, whether it's maybe a year or so down the line, they're just going to market that, and obviously with TNT Sport and Sky Sports, they're going to do their most as well. So it's going to be a huge fight. I mean, last Saturday was pretty big because I think everyone was watching it, weren't they? So I don't think they're going to have any issues of trying to market that rematch when it does come across. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's more of a case they're not going to have any problem drumming up publicity, are they? Because the fight is the publicity in itself. I guess it's more around of what sort of campaigns can they craft around it. Maybe if anyone's trying to get a race to be a betting partner, like what William Hill did this weekend, if they want, they might see them repeat that. Maybe see some like special offers around it and things like that, sign up offers. I mean, I remember seeing ones in the past, like there was, I can't remember who it might have been Bet Victor, I think, back in the day when Fury first fought Wilder. They had some sort of sign up offer of like giving people quite a few free bets if they came in, signed up and put a bet on Fury to win by KO or TKO, I think. So I guess these matches always provide that kind of opportunity.
Yeah. Just to add on to that as well, Ted, though, boxing's just a pretty simple sport to bet on, because you either get your points, your TKO, your KO, and then the round, and that's really it. Like the football, you've got all these player props and all that, whereas boxing, there isn't that much to do. So I think just people just genuinely because it's so easy to just bet on. So I think it's the easiness as well to bet on boxing as well.
Yeah, it's like you say, it's very straightforward, isn't it? It's like with a horse race, you just pick the horse, and then your options other than that are limited. Yeah, with boxing, you pick the fighter, you pick how they're going to win, or you pick which round you think they're going to do it in, and it's really just sort of focused around those three like propositions, really. And then so we've mentioned about like you say with Riyadh and Saudi Arabia and putting all the money into it and getting the sport sort of bigger. I'd kind of like to hear both your opinions on this. Have we been seeing a bit of a resurgence in boxing in recent years? And obviously, as a knock on this, it's an increase in its prominence as a betting market. I think Kieran, I'd like to hear your view on this one first.
Yeah, so I mean, like you said, there is a resurgence that you can sort of witness. Obviously, still behind football and horse racing, probably as the biggest sports in the betting industry. People obviously like to bet on fights, and as Callum mentioned, it's quite easy to bet on. You've got the method of victory, how many rounds. Maybe you can even group the rounds, and it's probably one of the sports most associated with betting behind horse racing. So I think there has been a resurgence in recent times, maybe with the big personalities we've sort of seen with Fury, Joshua Wilder, even the lower weights like Canelo. A lot of people are getting behind these fights, and betting operators are sort of partnering themselves quite strategically with these big events, and people are always going to bet on it. I mean, you've even seen celebrities like Drake, all these artists, they come out and they even put a bet on and show you the betting on, and just stuff like that. I think when it comes to fight night, it's all about a big show and entertainment, much more, I would say, than football and even horse racing in a way. It's all about big show, bright lights, and at the end of the day, you may as well put some money on it and try and win yourself some money as well. So I definitely think there's been some sort of resurgence, but also it's just sort of been a consistent, reliable sport to bet on over the recent years.
I wonder who Drake bet on over the weekend.
I think he bet on Fury.
Must about 500,000, isn't it?
Yeah, no surprises there then.
Yeah, there is. He's got his curse, hasn't he?
Was there anything you wanted to add on that, Callum?
No, not really. No, I mean, Kieran covered it quite well. I think, obviously, we'll lead on to this next part, aren't we? But I just Saudi as a whole now is kind of almost becoming like the home of boxing now right now. Just the amount of sheer money they're pouring into it and stuff, which it's got its positives and it's got its negatives. The negatives are obviously, you know, what Amnesty International always keeps talking about, sports washing, you know, with the, you know, human rights stuff they're saying about Saudi Arabia and using money, sports as a ploy and a mask to mask that away. But in a sense, though, if you're a boxing fan, they're making the big fights happen because they're offering the money, and you've got Bivol and Beterbiev in the light heavyweight division. That's going to happen over there as well. So they're making the big fights happen, and then obviously it's drawing attention to the sport again and maybe bringing new eyes to the sport. So it's got its pros and its cons, but it's just good to see the best fight the best, isn't it, when boxing, because it's not happened. It doesn't happen all the time, does it?
Yeah, it seems like the Saudi Saudi approach to it and using Riyadh as this host city. It's it's like you say, it's kind of solved that problem that a lot of boxing fans have had. That like you say, the big fights haven't been happening because often I think the fighters feel that they're not getting quite the paycheck they deserve. And this Riyadh season initiative that Saudi Arabia has brought in is kind of is giving them that financial incentive. And yeah, you're right. You've got the Beterbiev versus Bivol one coming up. That's part of the whole. It's the Matchroom versus Queensbury night, isn't it? The sort of 5v5. So that's, I think, kind of like building on what we talked about earlier with the sort of marketing opportunities and all that. I think that provides these big events that we've got between now and the next Fury Usyk fight, as and when or if that does happen. You've got these events in between that allow the bookmakers to stay sort of continually tapped into the boxing fandom, haven't they? But just sort of building on this Riyadh thing, Callum, I'd just like to give a bit of a mention to, you know, is this just sort of indicative of Riyadh and Saudi Arabia's like growing role in sports, and why do you reckon this is something that betting stakeholders should pay attention to?
Well, yeah, it's basically part of their Saudi Vision 2030, isn't it? So they want to become like a global tourism hub by 2030. I know that I think they are now the only likely front runners to host the 2034 World Cup. That's in 2034. But yeah, Live Golf is obviously taken off as well as a competitor to PGA, although, you know, that's going to be merging soon. We don't know the full details about that, but no, UFC are making their debut over there. You've got the WTF tennis finals heading over there next 4 years. So I think in terms of bookmakers, what we're looking at Saudi Arabia, obviously they've got to understand the market because it's predominantly Muslim country, isn't it? So, you know, betting, it would be illegal. Right in saying that, but so there's some sort of like localization issues there that they've got to maybe when it pertains to like broadcasting stuff in terms of, you know, broadcasting betting websites over there in Saudi fees, because I don't think that'll be able with it. But But in terms of what Saudi are doing, trying to get the big fights happening in boxing and all the other stuff, all the other sports are bringing over there, William Hill, I'm sure, got a lot of exposure from Saturday night because it was one of the biggest, the biggest heavyweight title fight in about 30 years. So if they're making big events and big opportunity and big platforms, then bookmakers and advertisers are going to go and latch onto that because it's so much exposure for that.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I guess the other thing is with these big events happening there, with the boxing, with the UFC, with the golf, like you said, with the women's tennis, WTA finals are going to be there. This is all stuff that people obviously like to bet on and like to pay close attention to. So it's just also a general source of revenue, really. Yeah, that's it for part one. We've talked about the boxing. We'll be moving on to football in part two, and specifically around Betano and their marketing activity in this area.
SBC Leaders connects the gambling industry's top-tier operators and associations to share the best ideas, collaborate on solving the biggest issues, and push innovation throughout the betting and gaming industry. If you're an operator and want to join the discussion, visit sbcleaders.com for more information.
And welcome back to iGaming Daily. We're the Insider Sport team. We've just had quite a lengthy discussion about the boxing over the weekend, and next up we've got the football. So this is a company that we've been covering quite a lot lately because they've been extremely active in sort of sports sponsorship, and they've built up, as I said in the intro to this, quite an impressive portfolio of football partners across several different markets. So it really just seems like Betano are like taking on the world of sports sponsorship. Callum, if I could start with you, could you just give us a bit of a breakdown of the recent sponsorship activity we've seen from this brand?
So Betano, I've looked at them with the sports, football sponsorship that they're doing right now, and there's two key markets that they've really honed in, and one's Portugal, which they've got sponsorship agreements with Benfica and Porto, the two biggest football clubs in Portugal. I'm sure Sporting Lisbon fans won't like me saying that, but and then in Brazil, they've got, I think they have a Atlético Mineiro. I think another club that it doesn't come to the top of my mind at the minute, but they've also got the title sponsorship rights for the Brazilian Serie A, so the league. And obviously now recently they've signed a deal with Aston Villa, haven't they, until 2026, and then that's when the front of shirt gambling sponsorship ban comes into effect after that season. So it is interesting to see how they've just really honed down and doubled down on sponsorship within football, because I think it relates back to what we were saying before about the boxing fight on Saturday. Football is the biggest sport in the world; it's a global sport, and if you're touching in these different markets now, I'm sure they're going to have a lot more focus in the UK with the Villa deal, but they're going to have such a early success, I believe, in the Brazil market, because obviously the Brazil market has just been regulated at the start of this year, so I think they're getting a foothold into that market at the moment. And then within Portugal, they're just doing a lot of stuff with Porto. I think they had they've been running initiatives with Porto recently. So I'm sure that they're gonna maybe double down a bit more in the UK now with the Villa deal coming into effect this upcoming season.
Yeah, so I mean, like you said, Callum, you mentioned the Latin America side of things. That's obviously a market that, as you said, with Brazil is sort of is developing quite a bit. I mean, what do you reckon? What does Betano's international sponsorship activity there really tell us about Latin America? And I mean, they signed quite a significant deal with the Argentine Football Association as well, didn't they? As I said, why do you reckon this could be significant to their sort of global growth? Well, regional growth more, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, it's because they're trying to get a foothold, really, aren't they? They're trying to get in there early in the Brazil market right now. But football in Brazil is just synonymous, isn't it? Like, it goes hand in hand, Brazil and football, doesn't it? So, I mean, it's pretty much just getting into that market early, establishing yourself as a brand and as a visible brand. Even though Brazilian people might not even like betting, it's the exposure and it's knowing that the Betano brand's there. They know that what Betano is and so forth. So, yeah, it's kind of like when Premier League was sponsored by Barclays, wasn't it? Yeah. You don't really bank with Barclays, but you know of them, don't you? So that title sponsorship for the Brazilian league will be, I reckon, will be the more significant deal that they signed over there for sure.
And I guess as well, the Argentine one is, even though obviously people in Brazil will be following Brazilian football, not Argentine football, they follow the Brazilian national team. I guess with Argentina, they just won the World Cup 2 years ago, so it's quite a significant country to be associating yourself with from a football standpoint. And it does have its own regulated betting market in some places, well, like Buenos Aires is quite a significant regional betting market there as well, I think. So then, obviously, we've also talked about the UK, and I think Betano recently launched in the UK. I think they launched in partnership with Bet Victor, like in a sort of white label agreement with the BV Group. And as you said, Callum, they had this Aston Villa partnership as well, which got announced shortly before they launched. So, Kieran, I was just wondering, because you've covered some of this sort of stuff on Inside of Sport lately, what does the Betano deal with Villa tell us about kind of the sponsorship dynamics we've got going on in the UK at the moment? And and just sort of explain it in the context of some of the other activity we've seen.
So first of all, like as Callum mentioned before, this deal is quite a bold deal, I would say. It sort of replaces Aston Villa's last sponsor, who was the Chinese gaming firm BK8, and they're actually paying, I believe, double what the old sponsor are paying. The time of the deal as well, as Callum mentioned, just before this restriction comes into play where you can't put betting sponsors on the front of shirt, you can still put them on the sleeves and the training kits, which may be something we will see soon. So I think it's quite a bold plan. I think they're also making the most of it, which I'm surprised other betting companies haven't been doing. And I'm also surprised that other football clubs haven't been trying to make the most of it and sort of drain it for all they can while they still can. In terms of sort of the sponsorship dynamics in the UK, betting sponsorship still definitely has a place in UK football. Like I've just mentioned, there's still sleeve sponsorships, the training kit sponsorships. I think Tottenham signed a training kit sponsorships, which will have a feature coming out soon on Inside of Sport about. But there's been over recent years, there's been initiatives like the Big Step, who've sort of fought to put restrictions in place, which personally I think rightly so. I think they've raised some really good points. But the money that these betting companies bring into the game, you just can't really replace it. So, teams will adapt, betting operators and teams and sports books, they'll all adapt just to try and make the most out if it's money related for the team, or even if it's sort of just getting the brand out there for the fans. But yeah, like I said, it's really hard to replace. As I mentioned earlier, though, these sleeves and training kit deals, I wouldn't be surprised if we sort of see more initiatives around them. You might even see teams sort of wearing the training kits more before games and stuff like that, and doing sort of activations and sort of brand deals with the training kits on rather than the first team kits. So I'd be interested to see sort of what strategies they implement to just try and get these betting sponsorships out there.
I guess as well, it's also important to note that this incoming ban, the voluntary ban, it's only in the Premier League as well, isn't it? So obviously we're still going to see all these betting deals. Like we can still see front of shirt betting deals in the Championship, in League One, League Two, and so on. Which I think is where a lot of football stakeholders were kind of more concerned about potential phase out completely of sponsorships, because like the lower leagues are ones in particular that do rely quite heavily on outside sources of revenue from sponsors and so on. So then just to round it off, guys, I've just got one last question for you both. What do you think? What do you reckon we can see some more activity from Betano in this space, and like, what do you reckon they're really sort of aiming to achieve with this quite an all-encompassing sports sponsorship strategy?
I think it's a really bold. It's a really bold move what they're doing at the minute. Just to they're really doubling down, aren't they, on a whole lot of football sponsorship. But it's just all about getting the exposure of the brand out there. In terms of the UK market as well, I think it is going to be very, I think it's going to be very hard for these outside companies like your BetMGMs who are establishing themselves here, or your Betanos. It's because it's so cultured betting over here in terms of football, and it's so cultured. Like everyone has their preferred betting operator that they like to, bet on, whether it's Bet365, Sky Bet, whatever. I think so. It's going to take a lot for these outside companies to come in and then just persuade people to join, whether that's with free bet promotions or whatever. So yeah, I think it's going to be tough for them. But in terms of Betano, yeah, I can see them maybe start inking a few more deals with other Premier League or maybe even Championship clubs down the line for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's they like you said, they're really active in this area. They've got all the partnerships in Latin America. They've got the one in Portugal that they just renewed with Benfica. They're a partner of the Euro this year as well, aren't they? It's a really, really significant one. Considering they're active in quite a few different global markets as well, European markets as well. It's quite big for that. Kieran, did you have any final thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think like sort of Callum said that the global expansion obviously sending shockwaves around the industry, and they're being very bold and they're sort of showing like we're here now. We're sort of taking over football, especially. But just like on some research that it's quite interesting to see that they're also still sponsoring a lot of Greek athletes and local athletes. So they've got that global strategic plan to get their exposure, but they are also still sponsoring local athletes and sort of doing all they can for their local community and giving back to Greece. That's quite an interesting little take.
Yeah, I think that's quite an important thing to note, actually. For any company out there, really, even when if you're looking at putting your foot on the accelerator for global expansion, it's always important to keep your home market in mind, and I guess remember where you started and ensure that you always keep activity up there. That's all we've got for Insider Sport and iGaming Daily today. Callum and Kieran, thanks so much for taking the time to share your thoughts with everyone. And I guess I'd also just encourage all of the listeners to keep an eye out for anything coming out of the Casino Beats Summit this week, where our colleagues from Casino Beats are out in Malta covering that. Stay tuned to Casino Beats for that, and stay tuned to iGaming Daily for some more episodes. Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you for listening to today's iGaming Daily podcast, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market. If you want to find out more about some of the subjects raised today, feel free to explore any of the sites in the SBC News Network or check out the latest edition of the SBC Leaders magazine. Happy reading.